Nagpamudmod at nagpaskil ang Agbayan Party ng mga wanted poster ni dating presidential spokesperson Harryroque at hinikayat ang publikong tumulong sa paghahanap dito upang harapin ang arrest order ng House Quad Committee. Sa isang Facebook post, ipinahagi ng Agbayan ang ilang mga larawan ng pagpaskil nila ng poster ni Roque na may nakasulat na "Wanted, Harryroque, Pogo Lawyer" sa Quezon City at nagpamudmod ng poster sa ilang mga residente sa lugar. Payo namin kay Roque na lumabas na sa pinagtataguan niya at harapin ang House Committee. Hindi lang House of Representatives ang tumutugi sa kanya, kundi mga mamamayan din. Ani Agbayan Youth Secretary General Kayla Meneses. Samantala, nananawagan din si Meneses sa publiko na makipagtulungan sa mga otoridad sa pagtunton kay Roque. We are calling on our citizens to join efforts to track down Harryroque. Kung patuloy niyang susuwayin ang kanyang tungkuling sumunod sa sabina ng House Quad Committee, gagawin namin ang tungkulin namin bilang mamamayan na tumulong sa pagtugis sa Pogo Lawyer. Saad ni Meneses. His roles and ties with the pogo industry are too obvious and blatant. Hindi na niya matadaan sa pagpapalusot at pagsisinungaling na dati niyang ginawa para kay Duterte. Dagdag pa niya, matatandaang noong September 12 nang ipasight in contempt ng House Quad Committee si Roque sa ikalawang pagkakataon matapos hindi sumipot sa pagdinig at kabiguang magsumite ng mga hinihinging dokumento sa komite tulad ng Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth or SALN.
I move, Mr. Chair, that we hold Harryroque in contempt, Attorney Harryroque in contempt for refusing to submit the document subject of the subpoena de Susticom and of which he has manifested that he was going to submit to this committee, Mr. Chair. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Ang pagdinig na isinagawa ng komite ay hinggil sa investigasyon nito sa Pogo ng Lucky South 99 kung saan si Roque umano ang lumalabas na legal counsel nito. Matapos ilabas ang arrest order laban sa kanya, nagtago si Roque. Dahilan kaya tinawag siya ng chairperson ng Quad Committee na si Surigao del Norte 2nd District Representative Robert A. Sparbers na pugante. Samantala sa isang video message, iginiit ni Roque na mahalaga raw ang kanyang kalayaan kaya't hindi na niya ito isusuko muli. Iginiit naman ng House Quadcom na hindi aalisin ang contempt order kay Harryroque. Nais ng House Quad Committee na harapin ni dating presidential spokesperson Attorney Harryroque at ang kanyang asawang si Myla Roque ang komite matapos nilang umalis ng bansa sa kabila ng contempt order na isinampa laban sa kanila. Samantala, humiling ang asawa ni Harryroque na si Myla Roque na manghimasok na sa contempt at arrest orders na inilabas laban sa kanya ng House of Representatives Quad Committee Contempt and Arrest Orders. Naghain sa Supreme Court ng petition for certiorari and prohibition si Myla laban sa tinawag nito na otokratiko at kapritsoso na pagpapakita ng kapangyarihan. Nais ni Ginang Roque na gamitin ng Supreme Court ang kapangyarihan nito na pag-aralan kung nakagawa ng grave abuse of discretion ang Quadcom. Nakasaad sa petisyon ni Myla na ang arrest order ng Quadcom ay banta sa kanyang right to travel at ang ipinataw sa kanya ng contempt ay paglabag sa due process dahil wala namang subpoena na inisyu sa kanya para patawan ng parusang contempt. Nalalabag na rin umano ang kanyang right to privacy dahil maging ang kanyang medikal na kondisyon ay sinisiyasat ng Quadcom. Sinabi ni Mrs. Roque, dating trustee ng Pag-ibig Fund, na regular siyang tumatalima sa mga kahilingan ng Quad Committee. Ngunit tuwing nagsusumitian niya siya ng mga medical document ay biglang nag-iiba ang hinihinging dokumento ng naturang komite.
Attorney, for the record, kayo po ba ay may pamilya?
Meron po.
Maaari niyo po bang banggitin ang pangalan ng inyong asawa?
Si Myla Roque po.
And I understand, Attorney Harryroque, that your wife, Myla Roque, is likewise a government employee. Do you confirm?
Former. She no longer is.
She used to be
She
a
used to be.
government employee.
Yes, ma'am.
May we be enlightened, Attorney Roque? Saan po ba siya nagtrabaho before?
Well, let me correct. Ma'am, your statement that she was a government employee, she was not, because she was a private representative to the Board of Trustees of the Pag-ibig Fund. And her category as a as a private sector representative did not make her a government employee. As in fact, she was not covered by GSIS, and there's even an issue on whether or not the private sector representative should even file a SALN.
Nevertheless, Attorney Roque, as private representative of Pag-ibig Board of Trustee, what benefits or allowances does she receive?
She gets per diem, per hearing,
Per diem per hearing,
per meeting, I should
per
say, Your Honor.
meeting.
Yes,
And
Your
may
Honor.
we be enlightened, kailan po ba siya na-appoint as private representative dito sa Pag-ibig Board of Trustees?
If I'm not mistaken, it was around 2017.
2017?
If
And
I'm not mistaken po.
when did it end, Attorney Roque?
It ended, if I'm not mistaken, 2022 or 23, Your Honor. I cannot remember
2022
exactly.
and 2023. And you will agree with me that during the time of the appointment of your wife as private representative of Pag-ibig Board of Trustee, the president was then President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Yes, Your Honor, Madam, Mr. Chair.
How about you, Attorney Roque? Did you get any government appointment during those times?
I was a member of the 17th Congress from June of 2016 until November of 2017. From November of 2017 until October of 2018, I was presidential spokesperson, and I became presidential spokesperson again from April 2020 until November of 2021.
May we know, Attorney Roque, let's go back to your wife. Magkano po ba yung tinatanggap niyang per diem per meeting?
Hindi ko po talaga alam kasi hindi namin pinag-uusapan yan, but it was a very modest sum.
And with reference to your engagement in the government, 2017, 17 Congress, may we know how much your salary is as member of the House during that time?
I do not recall, but I still have colleagues from the 17th Congress here. So I think it was, I cannot remember the exact amount, but it was, I don't know, maybe 200, 300,000. I don't know, 200,000 po, no? 200,000 a month.
And you likewise mentioned about your appointment as the presidential spokesperson. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can you please enlighten us how much was your salary as presidential spokesperson?
Almost the same because it was the same salary grade as a congressman.
I understand as well, Attorney Roque, that you have children.
Yes, Your Honor.
May we know the names of your children?
The first one is Bianca Jacinta, and the second one is Harrison Jacob.
Bianca and Harrison. Does these names of your children have any connection with Biancham?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Biancham Holdings and Trading. You confirm?
Yes, Madam, Mr. Chair.
And can you please enlighten us? When was this holding company incorporated, Attorney Roque?
As early as 2015, before there was Pogo, I believe. It was already
2015.
founded. Yes, Your Honor.
And during that time, can you please enlighten us, sino po ba ang mga incorporators? First incorporators of Biancham Holdings and Trading.
That's myself, my wife, my then law partner Joel Butuyan, Eileen Garcia, and one of my staff lawyers who has since passed, Jarmay Garcia.
Can you enlighten us further? Gaano ho ba kalaki ang inyong ownership dito sa Biancham Holdings and Trading, Attorney Roque?
It differed over the years, Mr. Chair, because it started as a small company, It was amended once, and
Mr. Chair, can we please direct our resource speaker to limit his answers to the questions which are being propounded? If
Mr.
I may
Chair.
proceed, Mr. Chair, would you confirm, Attorney Roque, that at the time of the incorporation of Biancham Holdings and Trading, you were holding 49.96% ownership, while your wife Myla is holding 49.96% ownership? Do you confirm?
if that is what appears in records, I confirm that, Mr. Chair, but I do not have a copy of the records before me right now.
In other words, Mr. Chair, the remaining 0.8% is the ownership which are being shared by Joel Butuyan, Zarmay Garcia, and Eileen Garcia. And it was mentioned earlier by our resource speaker that all these incorporators were his associates, either in Batuyan and Rael, and in Center Law. Do you confirm?
I confirm that, Mr. Chair. It is a family corporation with my close associates as nominal stockholders to complete the 5 shareholders that were then required by the old corporation code. It is no longer required to have 5.
How do you describe the nature of this ownership when it is only 0.8% being shared by 3? Because, to my opinion, they are nominal, if not dummy.
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, they're not dummies. I think the correct term is they are nominal shareholder. They hold qualifying shares so that we can complete the minimum 5 members of the board and incorporators that was then required by the old corporation code.
This
no longer
representation,
required.
Mr. Chair, take notice of the answer of the resource speaker. And do you confirm as well that from 2014 to 2020, you were the president of Biancham?
If that is what the records indicate, I do not have the records before me, but I will confirm if that is what appears in the Securities and
It
Exchange
does.
Commission. Yes.
It does, Mr. Chair. And do you confirm as well that your wife, Myla, was a member of the board of director of Biancham from 2014 to 2020 as well?
I confirm that, Mr. Chair, because that is the nature of the 5 incorporators and the requirement of 5 directors as well.
And do you confirm as well that as the president, a calibrated lawyer, a prominent personality in the legal circle, of course, it is a common knowledge that yearly the company or the corporation is required to file an audited financial statement? Does our resource speaker confirm?
I confirm that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I request our secretariat to please flash in our screen the 2014 Statement of Assets and Liabilities of Biancham.
Technical, can you please plus the SAL-N of Attorney Roque?
Mr. Chair, I wish to correct, with all due respect, this is audited financial statement of Biancham and not SAL-N. And I am requesting that the page of assets be flashed in the screen. This is 2014.
Okay, could you please flash the audited financial statements of the company, technical? Ginagawa ba yan?
Mr. Chair, while we are waiting for the document to be shared to the public, I wish to share that the document discloses cash for 2014 of Biancham in the total amount of 125,300 pesos. And then, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
I wish to invite as well the attention of the public, especially the Quad, to to the 2015 audited financial statement of Biancham. Noticeably, the cash increased from 125,000 from 2014 to 3,125,300 pesos in 2015. I wish to take note, Mr. Chair, 2014 and 2015 were prior to the administration of former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Having seen 2014 and 2015 assets of Biancham, kindly flash the 2018 assets of Biancham Holdings.
Could you please plus the 2018 audited financial statement of 2018?
For the information of the committee, Mr. Chair, from 125,000 in 2014 to 3 million in 2015, the cash or the current assets skyrocketed in 2018 to 67,775,800 pesos. With all due respect, Attorney Roque, saan po nanggaling itong napakalaking perang ito? Please enlighten us.
Nagbenta po ang pamilya ko ng isang 1.8 hectares na lupa sa multinational village, Parañaque. We sold it to the Velarde Group. In turn, the Velarde Group swapped it to the SM Group. And our 1.8 hectares now is where the SM warehouse is located.
And can you please enlighten us, magkano po ba ang pinagbentahan nyo ng property na nabanggit ninyo?
Ang zonal valuation po, nung panahon na binenta
Mr.
namin...
Chair, we are asking about the selling price, not the zonal valuation.
Ma'am, because the selling price is the zonal valuation, it was 12,000 per square meters times...
Not at all times, Mr. Chair.
No,
The zonal valuation is not always the selling price of the property, and that is a common knowledge. Please enlighten the Quad. How much was the selling price of your property, which was the source of your 67,775,800 pesos cash of Biancham in 2018?
I do not remember the exact amount, but it is roughly for the 1.8 hectares, 216 million, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, in line with the answer of the resource speaker, I respectfully move that we be provided with a copy of the sale document, the deed of sale of the property that was mentioned by our resource speaker. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I manifest that I have a PowerPoint presentation that I intended to use, and I precisely included in that PowerPoint presentation the deed of sale, Your Honor, of this property of 1.8 hectares in multinational village, Parañaque.
Mr. Chair, that will depend on the Quad if he will be allowed to make his presentation, Mr. Chair. If I may proceed, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please proceed, and we will decide on that request by the resource persons at the appropriate time. Please proceed.
I understand as well that in view of your appointment as presidential spokesperson, you are likewise bound by Republic Act number 6713. That is the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. May I ask our resource speaker, ito po bang 67,775,800 pesos? Did you disclose this in your statement of asset and liabilities and net worth?
I remember I declared cash of 60 million, Mr. Chair, in my SALN.
What explains the disparity? Why not declare the 67 million instead of 60 million cash only?
because I did not have 67 million in cash at that point in time, Mr. Chairman. I had other assets, but the cash was 60 million at the time when I last filed my SALN as presidential spokesperson, Mr. Chair.
Nonetheless, Mr. Chair, the document reflects the amount of 67,775,800 pesos. This is contained in the 2018 audited financial statement of Biancham as of 2018. And if I may share, Mr. Chair, Section 2, Rule 130 of the Rules of Court, documentary evidence. Documents as evidence consist of writings, recordings, photographs, or any material containing letters, words, sounds, numbers, figures, symbols, or their equivalent, or other modes of written expression offered as proof of their contents. Photographs include still pictures, drawings, stored images, X-ray films, motion pictures, or videos. This representation, Mr. Chair, wish to manifest that we are establishing the amount contained in the audited financial statement, which has disparity to the amount that was disclosed as represented by the resource speaker in his SALN for 2018. Mr. Chair, if I may continue. For the information of the Filipino people, I wish to share Section 8, Republic Act Number 6713. This is the Code of Conduct of Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. It states that a public official's statement of assets and liabilities, or SALN, includes, among others, all other assets such as investments, cash on hand, or in banks, stocks, bonds, and the like. And I maintain, Mr. Chair, whatever is reflected in the audited financial statement should have been declared in exact amount in the SALN of the resource speaker. If I may continue, Mr. Chair, Republic Act Number 3019, Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, Section 7, Statement of Assets and Liabilities. Every public officer within 30 days after the approval of this act, or after assuming office, or within the month of January of every other year thereafter, as well as upon the expiration of his term of office, or upon his resignation or separation from office, shall prepare and file with the office of the corresponding department head, or in the case of head of department or chief of an independent office, with the office of the president, or in the case of members of the Congress and the officials and employees thereof, with the office of the secretary of the corresponding house, a true, detailed, and sworn statement of assets and liabilities, including a statement of the amounts and sources of his income, the amounts of his personal and family expenses, and the amount of income taxes paid for the next preceding calendar year, provided that public officers assuming office less than 2 months before the end of the calendar year may file these statements in the following months of January. Given these legal provisions, Mr. Chair, both 3019 and 6713, may we ask the resource speaker, did you strictly comply with the requirements of these laws?
Mr. Chair, to the best of my abilities, yes, because my last net worth that I declared was 124 million pesos.
In line with that, Mr. Chair, I respectfully move that we direct the resource speaker to submit his SALN from 2016 until 2022 as described and required by Section 7 of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, Mr. Chair. So moved.
Please, Attorney Roque, submit your SALN since 2016 to 2022.
Your Honors, may I manifest that I will do even more than that? I have asked the House of Representatives to submit my SALN even when I was working as a working law student in this honorable chamber.
Mr.
I
Chair,
worked
may
here
we
as a student.
direct our
Way
resource
back, Your
speaker
Honor, 1988.
to just answer
I'm
the
preparing
question?
everything on my SALN.
Mr.
Your Honor.
Chairman.
Attorney Roque,
Mr.
please
Chairman.
answer the question of
I will comply, Your Honor, and will
Okay.
even submit earlier SALNs which are filed with the House of Representatives.
Congresswoman
Chairman.
Luistro.
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman, perhaps.
Mr. Chairman, let me remind our former colleague, Attorney Harryroque, please do not talk unless until you're recognized by the chairman.
I am so reminded, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Congresswoman
Chair.
Luistro, please proceed.
Proceeding to my second point, Mr. Chair, I wish to invite the attention of the resource speaker to the two versions of his or Biancham's general information sheet. And may I request the Secretariat to once again share these two documents to the public. We have one GIS. This is dated March 2, 2020. And another GIS dated October 21, 2020. If we will compare, Mr. Chair, in March 2020, you still see the name Herminio Harry L. Roque Jr., who owns 98%, and Myla Roque, who owns 21%. However, Mr. Chair, with the GIS of Biancham in October 2020, the names of Harry Roque and Myla Roque are no longer in the stockholders' information. And I wish to invite the attention of the Quadcom that a certain Percival Ortega, per October 2020 GIS, is now the owner of 99.99% ownership of Biancham Holdings. Can we request the resource speaker to enlighten us on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We invested proceeds from the sale of our Parañaque property, the 1.8 hectares, into a real estate project in Bataan, in a corporation known as First Bataan. Now, in that investment, bulk of the cash that we used belonged to an old maid aunt who was living with me, who was also my ward. It was with her consent, although I was officially appointed her guardian, because she believed that when we sold the 1.8 hectares in Parañaque, we should buy land elsewhere, because that is what my grandfather specifically instructed her. So bulk of what we used to purchase the land in Bataan came from my aunt, her share in the sale of the 1.8 hectares in Parañaque, whereas my siblings and I invested our proceeds from our share, from our mother's side, in the same project. Now, at that time, we had to reflect more or less the true ownership of the property, because my aunt would want that already. No? So what we did was we hired one of my friends, one of my lawyer friends, who knew everyone, who knew my aunt, who was a retired judge, who knew my brothers and sisters, who knew me, to act as trustee, because we were in the process of allocating the correct amount of shares for everyone. Because what happened was, when the Parañaque sale happened, two of my siblings did not join us in the investment. So we had to reflect, we have to put it first in the name of a lawyer in trust, as we arrange eventually how the property will be divided amongst us. No? Unfortunately, my aunt has since died, and we are now in the process of settling her estate. And so Attorney Ortega stands as trustee representing the estate of my aunt. And that is why there had to be a reorganization which will also have to await final resolution upon approval of my aunt's estate, which is actually judicial because my aunt left a will.
Mr. Chair, I wish to invite the attention of our resource speaker to these two documents, notwithstanding the fact that there was a trust agreement between Percival Ortega and attorney Harry Roque, notwithstanding the fact about the agreement among the family. May I know what mode of transfer was used for the spouses Roque to be able to transfer it to the name of Percival Ortega?
In the form of a trust, all of us executed trust agreements to Percival Ortega because he will be eventually the one to divide amongst us the property, also pursuant to what the judgment of the estate court will adjudge.
May we direct the resource speaker, Mr. Chair, that we be furnished with a copy of this trust agreement?
Mr. Chair, with all due respects, this is a legislative inquiry on pogos, and I think it has become too personal already.
Mr. Chair?
I will submit a copy of the deed of sale of the property to show that the money that we used to acquire the property in Bataan was legitimately sourced and did not come from pogos. But I think family matters should be left alone already, especially since, as I said, there's also settlement of estate in process. No, I just would like to raise the issue of materiality. I answered questions on source of funds to prove it did not come from pogo, because we sold 1.8 hectares in, which is a commercial property in multinational village Parañaque, which I felt was material to this inquiry. But to inquire now even on family trust affairs, I think it's too much already. I think I have shared what the committee should know, that we had funds to acquire the land and legitimately sourced through a sale transaction, which is duly documented, and I will submit a copy of the said document, including also a copy of the zone evaluation in the area to indicate at least minimum price by which we sold the 1.8 hectares. With all due respects, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Does the movement
With all due respect to
require-
the resource speaker, but I insist that we provided with the mode or the instrument that was used in the transfer of the shareholdings from spouses Roque to attorney Percival Ortega. I wish to go back to our previous committee hearings, Mr. Chair. We have established a number of circumstantial evidence already, which, when taken together, will lead to one reasonable conclusion that our resource speaker has connection to Lucky South 99. At first, I was surprised by the sudden increase of the assets of Biancham that is coming from 125,000 to 3 million, and then in 2018 to 67 million. And now, Mr. Chair, we have seen a sudden change in the name of the shareholder or the stockholder of Biancham, formerly from spouses Roque and now to attorney Percival Ortega. I wish to rule out, to verify, ito po bang mga movement ng pera na ito? After all, he is the one who mentioned na hindi ito galing sa pogo. Let the quad verify kung saan nga nanggaling ang mga perang ito, Mr. Chair.
Attorney Roque, the Congresswoman Luistro has stated the reason why the document that she is asking from your end is necessary in the investigation that the Quadcom is conducting. With respect, of course, to the funds that are in question, the committee should be convinced, following the questions raised by Congresswoman Luistro, the committee must be convinced that indeed the proceeds of the sale of your property is the one that is now being reflected as the assets of the Biancham Corporation. So I would ask our resource persons to please comply with the request of Congresswoman Jinky Luistro.
I will comply, Mr. Chair, but may I be allowed to say that I differ with the good Congresswoman's conclusion that circumstantial evidence have linked me with Pogo. I assert that my relationship with Sandra Ong was a professional relationship, and I think the deed of sale over 1.8 hectares of land will prove where we sourced the funds to buy the Bataan property. Thank you, Mr.
The
Chair.
manifestation of our resource persons is noted.
Mr. Chair,
Please proceed,
Mr. Chair.
Congresswoman.
should, may-
Is this related to
yes,
with the indulgence of
please,
Congresswoman
with the indulgence
Luistro?
of Congresswoman Luistro.
Chairman Abante, you're
Should
recognized.
she make a motion to that, Mr. Chair, in effect?
I already moved, Mr. Chair, that he be directed to submit to us the copy of the mode of transfer if that is indeed a trust agreement.
Yes, Congressman Abante, the resource persons has stated that he will comply with the request of the Quadcom.
As resource speaker said, he will comply. I second the motion.
Thank you. So please proceed, Congresswoman Luistro.
Mr. Chair, I just want to share to the public that the other and common modes of transfer of these shareholdings are by way of sale or assignment. And if these are the cases or the modes that which were adopted by Biancham, I believe that there's an obligation to pay the necessary taxes for the transfer. I wish to read, Mr. Chair, Section 254 and 255 of the Tax Code as amended. The state can file a criminal case for tax evasion against any taxpayer who willfully attempts in any manner to evade or defeat payment of any tax imposed by the tax code. Given this legal provision, Mr. Chair, I wish to move, or may I move as well, that we direct the resource speaker to submit his income tax return for 2018 declared in 2019. Mr. Chair, so moved.
There is a motion that the resource person submit a copy of his income tax return for the period 2018.
The supposed income was generated 2018, but I believe, Mr. Chair, that by practice it will be disclosed by 2019 income tax return, filed in 2019.
There is a motion, as clearly stated by Congresswoman Jinky Luistro, to require the resource person to submit income tax return on the period covered. Is there
Mr. Chair?
a second?
Mr. Chair, may I inquire? Because the sale of real estate...
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Congressman Akop.
I think we have a motion to settle
Okay.
before this resource person can speak.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. We will first dispose of the motion and then we will allow Congressman Attorney Harryroque to speak. So there is a motion clearly stated earlier by Congresswoman Jinky Luistro, duly seconded. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is carried. The resource person is required to submit to the committee the documents being asked by Congresswoman Jinky Luistro. Now, Attorney Harryroque, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to manifest that as far as the sale of the real estate is concerned, it will not be reflected in my income tax because it is subject to final tax. So I will submit the final tax paid for the transaction, Mr. Chair, because at this point, my income tax will be irrelevant to the increase of my assets because it was by reason of sale of real estate subject to final tax. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Harryroque. Does that satisfy?
This representation takes note of his manifestation, but this representation maintains as well the submission of the ITR declared in 2019.
Okay, so the resource person has learned that the requirement of Congresswoman Luistro is the income tax return of 2020. Okay, thank you.
No further question for the
Okay.
moment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Congresswoman Luistro. The next to interpolate is Congresswoman Migs Nograles. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to our resource person. May I direct the questions to Attorney Harryroque, Mr. Chair?
Please proceed.
Better, yeah. Attorney Roque, with regard to Biancham, as a former chairman and president of Biancham, and of course, a very known lawyer, are you familiar with its subsidiaries?
Wholly owned corporations by an existing corporation, Mr. Chair.
Are you familiar with the subsidiaries of Biancham?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am familiar with subsidiaries of Biancham.
What are these subsidiaries?
I have PH2, which is wholly owned by Biancham. There's another one, Lat something, which is also a holding corporation for another real estate company.
Let's show on the GIS on 2020 the subsidiaries. As stated in the GIS. Can we show it, please? So do you have 4 subsidiaries?
Yes, Madam, Mr. Chair.
That's PH2, Lot, First Bataan, Mariveles Power, and Block 19 in Pine Woods Village. So, since PH2, Lot 37, Pine Woods is subsidiary, I'm sure you're familiar with PH2, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you confirm that Biancham currently owns 99.9% of PH2, and even in 2018 it was 95%, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
In fact, in 2018, you were a shareholder, the resource person is a shareholder of PH2.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And at one point, even the chairman and president of PH2.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And this attorney Ortega, who acquired, now owns 99% of Biancham, was also a shareholder of PH2, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
In fact, he was a director, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you confirm that at one point, as stated in the 2022 GIS, a certain Attorney Gonzalez became a shareholder of PH2 as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So these are the breakdowns of Biancham's incorporators in 2014, PH2 stockholders in 2018, and Biancham's first GIS and amended GIS in 2022. So essentially, in Biancham, in 2014, you own 49.96%. In March 2020, you owned 98%, and just in 7 months, it was Attorney Ortega who owned 99% of Biancham.
By virtue of a trust agreement, Mr. Chair.
Currently, and PH2 stockholders in 2019, Biancham Trading owns 95%. This was in 2018 GIS as reflected. You own 1%. Attorney Ortega owns 1%. And a Attorney Gonzalez later on owned stocks in PH2. Is this correct?
That is what the record says, Mr. Chair, yes.
So essentially, the shareholders of PH2 and Biancham are almost the same.
It is 100% owned, Mr. Chair, by Biancham, except for the nominal shareholders to complete the minimum of 5 incorporators and directors, which was then required by the corporation code.
So the resource person is saying it's essentially owned, Mr. Chair. Let's just put that in record. Currently, Mr. Percival Ortega, as established earlier, has a 99% share in Biancham. So and he is the current chairman and president. This is correct.
He holds almost all the shares now in trust in behalf of all the families subject to our settlement, Your Honor.
And one of the shareholders is also a certain attorney Butuyan.
Yes, he was my law partner for 30 years or so.
So you, attorney Butuyan, and attorney Ortega, what is your relationship with each other? Were you classmates, all partners?
Yes, we are all classmates, and that is why the family trusted attorney Percival Ortega to take care of the interests of everyone.
Would you know if there are other companies wherein attorney Ortega is the chairman and president of?
I know he sits in some other companies.
And who is reflective of the true beneficial owner of Biancham?
I'm sorry,
The
Mr. Chairman?
true and beneficial owner of Biancham.
It is my family now. Actually, the biggest shareholder of Biancham now is my aunt, who invested the most in the real estate project in Bataan. But as I said, my aunt had just passed.
The biggest shareholder, even if
She is, because she invested the biggest amount of money in the real estate transaction.
So her name would be reflected on the beneficial owner form in the SEC documents?
Not yet, because in the beginning, she made me sign a loan agreement, and then later on, she changed her mind that it will be hers. She changes, so I just
Not
comply.
yet. So meaning, or currently, you're the beneficial owner?
Well, in our trust agreement...
Yes or no lang, Mr. Chair?
No, Your Honor. Right now, the beneficial owner is still the estate of my aunt, who owns the biggest share in the land transaction in Bataan.
Mr. Chair, since the beneficial ownership form is submitted naman to the SEC, may we require that the beneficial ownership form be submitted to the committee?
I am not aware, Mr. Chair, if we submitted one, in fact, because it is just a trust agreement amongst family members.
This is a requirement under the SEC. You're a very competent lawyer. You're not aware, and were you not the president? So you do not know the submissions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm not a specialist in corporation law. That's why I have to hire other
But you were
lawyers.
the former president and chairman of Biancham.
Yes, Mr.
And you
Chair,
were not aware
but
of the submissions?
it's a dormant company for all intents and purposes. I am not a specialist in corporation law.
It's a dormant corporation right now. How so?
It's a holding corporation because it only owns title to raw land. It has no commercial activity other than holding title to raw land currently.
So, Mr. Chair, may I move to get the beneficial ownership form, if there is, from the SEC or from Mr. Roque if he finds out?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware I actually filed because this was 2020. But if we need to file belatedly, we will file belatedly. But right now, I am not aware if we in fact filed that with the SEC, in all honesty.
And earlier, the transfer of the shares of stock to Attorney Ortega was through what mode?
It is a trust agreement whereby he agreed to be a trustee for everyone in my family.
And you have a copy of that trust?
I committed to submit a copy already of the trust agreement.
And currently, are you in the process of buying back or any plans to buy back your shares in Biancham?
Yes, we are in the process of finalizing so that I can buy back shares not in Biancham anymore, because pursuant to our reorganization, Your Honor, that is what I meant, Mr. Chair, that it has become too personal. It has nothing to do with Pogo, but I will continue. Pursuant to our plans, we are segregating now assets which my wife acquired during our marriage and assets which I co-own with my relatives, siblings, including my aunt. So we have formed a new company. It has just been formed
Mr. Chair, I was
recently.
just simply asking if he's in the process of buying back shares in Biancham. I'm not asking for his history or what his plans in life.
We are in the process, Your Honor, of me relinquishing all shares to Biancham.
Okay. Can we move on to another subsidiary? Another subsidiary. First, Bataan Mariveles Holding Corp. In 2017, you were a stockholder of Biancham, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
In fact, you were the president, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you were also a board member.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So you will be aware of the transactions entered into by Biancham, correct?
Not Biancham.
Sorry,
Are we talking of First Bataan,
First Bataan,
Mr.
First
Chair?
Bataan.
Yes,
First Bataan.
well, insofar as it is engaged in land banking, yes, I was aware of the land banking activities of the company because that's the only thing it has been doing.
But as well as the Biancham activities, since you were also the president during that time.
There was no commercial activity, Mr. Chair, for Biancham because Biancham merely invested in the land banking activity of First Bataan because the family investment is under the name of Biancham in First Bataan.
So this investment that you're stating in 2017, is that the reason why there was a subscribed and paid share of 35,347 shares in the amount of 35,347,000?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that was the initial capital contribution of my family in the land banking activity.
And in the AFS in 2017 of Bianchan, there's a net loss of 254,347 with assets of 1.5 million in cash with no liabilities. So paano nagkaroon ng purchase?
It was in the form of, as I mentioned earlier, in the beginning, my aunt treated it as an extension of a loan. So it was an advance from my aunt, which I thought would redound already to my name. But in the end, she said, no, until you actually pay me, it will still be mine. So
Mr. Chair.
these were in the forms of cash advances to purchase the land.
Mr. Chair, may I move that we get a copy of this loan agreement because we are
Oh.
circling back to this loan from the aunt, which, well, she's not here anymore.
She's not here anymore.
She has passed,
And-
so we cannot obviously ask
and
questions.
The loan was not in writing, but it was recognized in my SALN as an obligation to
How
my aunt.
convenient that the loan was not in writing, Mr. Chair, and going back to a loan agreement, and we can't even know if the loan agreement really did exist between two persons when the other person is not here. So we're just going to rely basically on a loan agreement you're stating, going back to this by your own word.
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess we go back again to the sale of our real estate property in 2017 and the fact that we started investing in Bataan in 2018. So it was really in conforme with instructions of my grandfather, when you sell some of my land, you buy new land.
Mr. Chair, so we go back to this whole thing. No, we'll just look at Biancham being a stockholder again of FBMHC, First Bataan. And alarmingly, this was it was paid at 35 million. And at this time in 2017, what was your job at that time, if you can repeat?
I was presidential spokesperson from, I was congressman from June 2016 until November of 2017.
And essentially, if we look at the table of the First Bataan, again, Biancham holds about 49.99% of First Bataan.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And the other major, can we show the table, please?
Secretariat, can you
12th
please show the
slide.
table?
I'm sorry.
And the other major shareholder of equal footing at 49.99% is a certain Green Miles Realty, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And we have other shareholders, Danny Corral, Attorney Butuyan, a Jessica Go, May Garcia, and a Candice Corral, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
Who are these persons? Who is Jessica Go?
Jessica Ko used to be a staff lawyer in my law office. She is now a state prosecutor at the Department of Justice.
So she used to work under your law office?
Yes,
with
Mr. Chair.
Attorney Butuyan, who's also a shareholder?
A nominal shareholder to complete the 5 incorporators and 5 directors then required.
And who is Zarmay Garcia?
An associate lawyer who has since passed.
Of also the same law firm?
Yes, Mr.
So
Chair.
you have 2 associate lawyers under your law firm that became a nominal shareholder in this big corporation.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And who is Danny Corral?
He is a very good friend of mine who is present today. He is an accomplished sugar trader since 1985.
And Candice Corral?
Candice Corral is the daughter of Danny Corral, who is my ihada in her wedding.
And Green Miles Realty Corp. What is this corporation?
That is a corporation owned by the Corral family. It has been in existence since 2010.
And so as we can see, Green Miles is essentially 56% Danny Corral, 28.5% Candice Corral, who are also shareholders of First Bataan, nominal shareholders, who essentially own Green Miles Realty Corporation, correct?
The plan originally was it was going to be joint venture between Biancham and the company of Danny Corral.
And can you explain your working relationship, since you're both in equal footing, Biancham and Green Miles, in terms of transactions, in terms of the corporate operations and whatnot?
Well, we are very good friends, and in the beginning, we intended to invest only in 90 hectares of property, and we had a consolidator by the name of Attorney Carlos, Anselmo Carlos. After transacting the first 90 hectares, he offered to expand the area to 200. And after the 200, Mr. Attorney Carlos passed, but the other landowners in the area offered to sell their properties. But I told my partner, Danny Corral, hindi ko na siya masasabayan. And I could only invest on behalf of Biancham up to 95 million.
And is this project the one in Mariveles?
Yes, that is in Barangay Biaan, Mariveles, Bataan.
And the total hectares, land area of that is 421 hectares.
We have confirmed the total area is only 310 hectares.
310 hectares. And what was the plan for the development of this area?
Well, we submitted a feasibility study to the Freeport Authority of Bataan. It was supposed to be mixed-used, and the original plan was it was going to have an LNG, a liquid natural gas power plant that would then power manufacturing facilities that we hope to attract in that location. And that is why we located in Mariveles, because it is where the Freeport Authority of Bataan was located. And I'm also a native of Bataan. So I really wanted employment for my home province of Bataan.
You mentioned originally. So what is the plan after that? If it was originally that, a gas, I think?
Liquid natural
gas.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine happened. And although we were able to enter into 2 memorandum of agreements with very big companies, one local, one Japanese, the plan to build an LNG plant was not feasible because the invasion of Ukraine caused LNG prices to increase, and the cost of electricity produced by LNG depends 70% on the cost of LNG. So we had to abandon the LNG, although we had 2 memorandums of agreements with very big and prestigious companies, and we have since focused on possibility of solar instead of LNG.
As a former presidential spokesperson, you're of course always interacting with the media and you're aware of the current news, especially during that time, correct?
especially when I was spokesperson, but there was a gap. I was spokesperson for 11 months and I was spokesperson for 1 year and 2 months.
Why is that?
Because in 2019, I resigned to run for the Senate, but had to withdraw because I had developed a heart condition. And then I was out of government from October 2018 until I was called back at the height of COVID in April of 2020 already.
So during some time, this article has already been deleted. Billionario.
Yes, that article caused so much trouble. What we did was we submitted, Mr. Chair, a feasibility study for what we had intended to do in our project in Bataan. And of course, it's very flowery. But unfortunately, the application to be part of the territory of the Freeport Authority of Bataan somehow leaked to the media, and it was reported in Billionario that we already had net worth equivalent to what we projected would be the net worth of the company after 20 years. So the thrust of the article was we were worth 55 billion already, as if we had
Mr.
already
Chair,
implemented
in
the
same
feasibility
article,
study.
there was a mention there that there were plans to create a pogo site there.
No, Your Honor. It was a BPO site, and I consulted with, in fact, the father of BPO in the Philippines, who was my dormmate in UP, former president of PAL. We reserved a BPO sector there, and Mr. Santa Maria, who is really the father of BPO in the Philippines, who was then in PAL, said that when I leave PAL, I will help you develop the BPO industry, especially since Bataan has a very young workforce.
So you're denying everything that this article is saying?
Definitely, because it assumed that we had already realized what was included in the feasibility study, and it had such an impact on my wife.
Okay.
That
Mr. Chair,
my-
yun lang naman
yes.
kailangan natin marinig if he is denying everything that was stated in this article.
Yes.
Let's go to the PH. Let's go back to PH2. In PH2, there's a house in Tuba, Benguet. Correct.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And you're again, we established you're incorporator of PH2. And you were, in fact, a president for a couple of years of PH2 in 2017 and even in 2018, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And this was the time that you were also the presidential spokesperson.
What year again, Mr. Chair? Because I have to verify.
2017, latter, you said, of 2017 and even in 2018, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you know that as the president and member of the board of PH2, then you have to review contracts and you would know transactions. As a lawyer, you would do your due diligence naman kahit papano.
Well, yes, we read contracts. Yes, Mr. Chair, we do.
And in this house, you were living for a while in
Yes,
Tuba, right?
from 2019.
And this house is essentially, you were leasing this house. PH2 was leasing this house, correct?
In the beginning, no. I lived there while recovering from...
Mr. Chair, we're just, if we're not asking in the beginning, is it sometime it was being leased to someone?
Yes, it was leased at some point after I resumed my obligations or my work as presidential spokesperson in 2020 April.
Kindly wrap up,
Yeah.
Congresswoman Nograles.
So, are you familiar, of course, with a certain Wan Yun?
With a...
One certain name of individual called
Yes,
named Wan Yun.
she was a lessee.
And a person of interest in the investigations of Lucky South 99.
My lessee who signed the contract was not a person of interest. It was another person who became a person of
Who is
interest.
this person?
I do not know the name.
So you
Because,
did not do due diligence on the subleasing of your supposed lessee?
I was not aware that that person was there. I did my due diligence. In fact, it was a very long time before we agreed.
If you did your due
to lease
diligence,
that house.
why did you not find out who was leasing that certain property?
Because I only studied the person who wanted to lease it, and that was the person who signed
So
the
you
lease
were not
contract.
aware that he was subleasing it to a certain Sun Liming.
He was not. I was not aware. It was not allowed.
But are you familiar with Sun Liming?
No.
Sun Liming it's in the news naman. He is currently in the Interpol red notice. So he was the one, and he said that he is leasing this house there. And you were not aware at all?
No, I was not, because my lessee was a different person. He was a lady who was a single lady, because we asked her to submit her ACR to prove that she was in compliance and she was not an illegal alien and that she had an NBI clearance as well.
Okay. And in 2020, again, you were no longer a stockholder of PH2, and at the same period, no longer a stockholder of Biancham, correct?
Yes, that is a result, Mr. Chair, of our reorganization arising from my wife's insistence that she did not want to be involved in any of my business undertakings anymore because she could not stand the lies that was printed by a tabloid online.
Okay. So in summary lang, Mr. Chair, I would just like to show a summary of maybe the ownerships that we've established today on Biancham Holdings and Trading. If we can show the last slide, please. So we have Biancham Holdings and Tradings that we've seen the connection with PH2 Lot 37, which Biancham owns 99.99% of that. Na ito nga yung bahay na in Tuba, Benguet, where we see it was leased to Wan Yun, who apparently subleased this to Sun Liming. We're both connected with pogos. We also have the connection with First Bataan, Mariveles Holdings Corporation, which you said that there's this land nga in Mariveles, that even if you are saying BPO siya, BPO can actually be a term naman na pogo operations pa rin naman to, which is why we are investigating on these illegal pogos and these illegal businesses running in the guise of a legal corporation or legal operations when hindi naman pala, no? Which Biancham owns 49%, almost 50%, and another is owned by Green Miles. Na alam naman natin may partnership ang Green Miles with Biancham also. So all of these, Mr. Chair, I just want to rebut what with due respect to the resource person, na walang kinalaman ng mga pinagtatanong natin sa Biancham at yung family holdings nila sa iba't ibang mga corporations na nakita naman natin subsidiary naman ng Biancham. That seems we have to dig deeper on the connection of the resource person with the connection also of some individuals and the connection of Pogo as a whole, which is part of this, what we're discussing anyway, Mr. Chair. With that po, Mr. Chair, I end my questions.
Okay. Thank you, Congresswoman Nograles.
Mag-subscribe at i-click ang notification bell para sa mga susunod na video updates. Maraming salamat po.